Olga Zinoviev, you're the president of the Biographical Institute Alexander Zinoviev.
Yes, I am.
On the 27th October this year, of course, a few days ago, President Putin spoke at the Pangea Club and mentioned Alexander Zinoviev in a very...
You know, it was, in the reality, it happened. And it was a enormous astonishment for all of us, because of course he knew Zinoviev very well. Because of Alexander Zinoviev, it's part of our motherland, part of our problems, partly problems. And because of Alexander and me, we were expelled out from the Soviet Union in the year 78. The destiny of Zinoviev, everything which has happened to us, were very famous to the Soviet government and to the Russian as well. And the idea or the period of how to say, to keep in secret Zinoviev, so-called in secret Zinoviev, although we were already back. We are back to Russia from Germany, from our exile. We were exiled, so-called, 23 years ago. And somehow, I can explain some and how it was happened, but somehow at our destiny, we had a lot of problems. Not officially, of course, but you know, here and there, on the conference, in radio and television, and so everywhere, it wasn't, how to say, it wasn't, it didn't forbidden, but it wasn't graded.
Because he was too honest about...
Too honest, yes.
And he was always fighting power.
Exactly. And he was always fight for truth, and only truth.
But this time there was a press storm, because I realized that Figaro, Die Welt, and the Chinese and
Brazilian newspapers.
And apparently even an Italian one will find it.
Sure.
So for you it was a sort of a recognition by President Putin.
You know, it's not only recognition from the side of President Putin, but much more. Now, officially and finally, Alexander Zinoviev is back to Russia, is back to his motherland. For me, it's more important.
Well, now it's his 100th anniversary,
exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And you organize every year a special conference on his writings.
Yes,
has this anniversary and this conference a special meaning for you?
Of enormous meaning. You know, it's my mission, it's my destiny. I was with Alexander. We worked together 40 years, from the first October 65 till 10th of May 2006. And after, before he left us, he whispered. He had no voice at all. He whispered, "I do hope you will do everything. You will be able to realize everything what we think, what we thought about. It will be enormously hard for you, but you will do it." Several times, several thousand times, I thought about his last words. It was enormously complicated, enormously hard. But the decision, not in written form, decision to keep away from Zinoviev, to have a distance from Zinoviev. You know, he's too clever for the mighty people who are now in our country say their last word. So it's so unusual, so uncomfortable to have something to do with Zinoviev, because of he's impossible from their point of view, How can be so insistent in his rule to say the truth and to think about the people, the Russian people, about the Russian civilization, about the whole civilization?
There's something quite interesting. I heard that you are practically, you know, the organizer of the Legion of the BRICS. Can you tell me more about it?
Not only I am the organizer, but together with my Indian friend, she named me sister. She is my sister in India. Our meeting was extraordinarily interesting. We put together our thoughts, and the idea of Legions of BRICS was born. You know.
But what is the Legion of BRICS?
From each country, we decided, her decision was, she came to me with a decision, with a proposal to take Alexander as a figure for this collective portrait, so-called. And, you know, of course it's a great idea, definitely. And from Brasilia, we took Paulo Coelho, not from Russia, Alexander Zinoviev. Again, it's absolutely clear.
China?
From China, Confucius, the philosopher #1. From India, Mahatma Gandhi, and from South Africa, Mandela.
So you're going to organize cultural events?
And not only cultural events. Our duty, our idea to put together the possibilities which we have, and we have a lot of. I mean, the mankind needs peace, education, guarantee for life, health, happy childhood, and etc. We are obliged, and we are able to do it, to gather it, but through all sorts of conferences, master classes, concerts, exhibitions, of course, several exhibitions, and meeting with the people, with the normal people, not only on the highest government level, but with the people, because of our idea is to help our mankind.
You mentioned before that the 20th century is going to be the last human century. Are you going to prevent all this? Are you going to fight for this?
You know, I would prefer, of course, to say that Alexander Zinoviev wasn't right in his words from his last work, Comprehension Factor. But unfortunately, everything what we are seeing now, everything what we are fighting against, is just the realization of his prognosis. He cried even about it. He wrote about it. He made a lot of conferences about it. It was necessary to warn the mankind that we are staying in the end of our history. And his words about that probably the 20th century was the last century of so-called happiness, and the next, our future, consists hatreds, wars, corruption, and the killing of probably of million people. It's not a bright future, not at all. So our aim, our idea to fight against this project of Alexander, not project, his prognosis of Alexander. And by the way, it's very typical for Alexander to put you in the corner with his prognosis, giving you the possibility to say, no, we are not so bad, we are able to fight.
So this year is going to be your 21st conference.
And in this year, of course, it's very special because of it's dedicated to Alexander's 100-year anniversary. And you know, I must tell you, it's rather not annoying, but somehow strange to feel I'm from Alexander's life. I did work with him during 40 years, and suddenly I'm a victim, not victim, sorry, свидетель. Witness, not victim, witness, of course, of his life. You know, it's rather strange. 100 years.
But it's very interesting.
And suddenly I'm a witness of his life, of his work, of his destiny. And for me, of course, it's a huge possibility and huge work, of course. I will tell you more. Without my friends, without my team, without my headquarters, it would be impossible to do and to go through all the troubles, all the problems fruitfully.
Tell me, if I'm not wrong, one of our best journalists, Giulietto Chiesa, was part of your board since the beginning.
Yes, exactly. He was a part of our Zinoviev Club, and after his death, you will saw it in our brochure that after his death, we decided to put him in the list of our honorable members. And you know, for me, it was rather strange discovery. Our decision, my decision, was to put to Italy, to Italian newspapers and journals, and to Italian embassy here in Moscow, our condolences. And I've got from nowhere answer. I don't know now. It's rather complicated to remember the name of this newspaper. Even Republic was unable to refused, no. Not unable, but refused. Corriere della Sera.
And Corriere della Sera, they refused.
They refused
your letter.
I was, verblüfft. It's impossible to understand.
Because here in Russia, apparently, there were a lot of articles on the main newspapers, and also, I think, the
and he was friend
national
of Zinoviev.
TV.
They understand each other so good. So it was a humiliation for us, for our country, for your country.
Of course.
First of all, because of such attitude, it's understandable. It's not the attitude of a civilized country.
Olga, when you left Russia at that time...
We were thrown out.
Yes, you were thrown out. Yes, of course. I'm sorry. You were thrown out of Russia in 19...
Of the Soviet Union.
So since then, you lived a lot of time in Europe.
Yes.
How do you feel now about the situation? Is Russia in war, or how do you see the situation?
You know, it's not a Russia in war, but the collective West is in war with Russia. It wasn't our idea to make the life in Ukraine for the people of Ukraine so complicated. It's how to say? It's a decision. It's definitely a decision of collective West to destroy everything which belongs to our future, actually, because of the life and the idea of existence of the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, and after that of Russia. It makes Western countries, and first of all, of course, England, United States, and their satellite, it makes them unhappy because of everything to destroy the Soviet Union was done in the early 90s, right?
Right.
And they thought that probably according to their recipe to destroy life in other countries, Syria, Lebanon, and etc., etc.,
absolutely,
and Yugoslavia as well, it would be done in the same way, according to the same recipe.
Do you think they are thinking to balkanize Russia?
Yes, exactly. That is why, as NATO. Bombed Yugoslavia, independent and sovereign country, Alexander told me immediately, is the beginning of tragedy of Russia. Balkanian project would be the scenery how to kill the Russia. Alexander was right again, unfortunately.
I call it the protocol for what I saw over there.
Yes, and that is why we came back to Russia.
Do you think that Alexander would be for a monopolar world or for a multipolar world?
For multipolar world, of course. It's not a question. You know, it's our vision of our world. We have so many populations, we have so many languages. Why we are obliged to think on English? Why we are obliged to do what Washington wants from us to do? We have our religion, each country, in a sort of way, several languages, several cultures, enormously interesting cultures. And why we have to, like an army, to do what from Washington goes? No.
And how do you feel in this moment? How do you feel Europe?
You know, I'm afraid for Europe because of gradually Europe loses its independence. From the beginning, from the organizing of United Europe, it was already somehow unusual. It was actually the project of United States, as you know. And you know it perfectly well, probably much better than others. And the hegemony of United States in Europe to make, to have their spoon in all possible soups in all possible countries, it was the way to paralyze independent life of all these countries, to throw away the mighty of European economy, and etc.
That's for sure.
That is why for them now probably it's the last round of their battle for hegemony of the whole world, but somehow it doesn't work because of although officially France and Germany are for the sanctions and etc. But you know, actually inside in countries there are people, there are population who is doesn't agree, doesn't accept the politic of their governments. How to work, how to be sure that you would be in the next election, you would be in the power. So it's very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable position.
Absolutely. And what do you think about the cultural discrimination that has been applied?
Well, discrimination has many faces, a lot of faces. Sometimes it's not necessary to talk about it, but enough to do against, to fight against your freedom, your destiny, your decision to be on the highest level of your education, to live in your country, not to dream to come to United States or somewhere else, to stay independent, sovereign personality. Because of according to Alexander's definition, he declaimed himself as a sovereign state, and he saw in each person the sovereign person. Yes,
of course. That is very important. And what do you think you're going to do to prevent all the situation?
Again, according to Alexander's words, we have to think. We have to think, always to think using own brains. And our idea, Alexander's idea was, we have to think and to rethink our position. It's our weapon. To be cleverer than aggressive Western countries. To be able to fight for your destiny, to fight and to support the independence of our own country, not to agree with all ideas which come from United States. We are civilized country, we are civilized population. Our country has 86 or probably more several nations. We are Russia. We love Russia. We are still Russia, and we are staying as Russia itself.
That's for sure, and it's beautiful. Just one last question. There are rumors in the West, on the Western side, saying that here there are a lot of oligarchs that don't agree with the president's policy.
You know, as for oligarchs, I cannot understand the policy of our government, why they do accept the existence of such personalities who got everything for Russia, from all possible sources, and after that they don't want to support our president. I cannot understand such attitude. If you got your financial
well-being,
sources,
in a way.
yes, please try to be a little bit thankful towards your own country. If you are not agree with our president, please go away. We don't need such oligarchs, you know. They are not, how to say, they are not support for our country. They are not support for our president. They use our country. They user of our country. That's all. They're parasites.
And what is your opinion about the general political situation here?
It's not so easy. It's very complicated. I think that from the beginning of this special operation, our president stays under enormous pressure, not only from outside but inside as well. But he knows perfectly well what to do. All his decisions are right because of, you know, it's not a caprice. It's a wisdom. It's a wisdom itself. And I must admit, I recognize him as a fantastic player. He's a grossmeister of political poker.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yes. It's my opinion, and each his decision for me is I can only applaud. Although it's not so easy. It's not absolutely so easy because of his surrounding. It's not so, how to say, not so friendly towards him, and he has to be very, very careful with his politics.
I imagine, especially because, you know, abroad he's represented like a sort of a Satan.
Yes, exactly, yes. But I repeat you once more and again, not because if he told some words about Alexander Zinoviev in the year before that, he didn't mention his name. I repeat you once more, in our days, especially now, especially with Russia, with aggressive surrounding of other countries, it's an enormously complicated game, which he's ruling. And by the way, he's right. He's right.
Do you think, well, knowing, you know, Alexander's writings, of course, and having collaborated with him so long, that the idea of two worlds is going to be possible?
Quite possible. You know, Alexander thought a little bit, wrote much more than, than it could be, or it would be possible to predict. But he was always with the thoughts about future. about the future of our planet, about the future of our civilization. And by the way, just in the last 2-3 months of his life, he wrote a very, very, very sensitive article about his thoughts, what could happen with Europe, Europe civilization. He was sure that we are able to keep our Russian civilization, so-called, but has enormous problem, and he discussed it with me, he discussed it with our friends. He has some thoughts that probably it would be for us coming very bad future, and especially bad future for European civilization. And we are the part of this civilization, or Europe is part of our civilization, never mind.
And this is, I think, what Alexandra and you are, fighting for.
Yes, exactly. We've done our best. Probably we are able to do much more. Anyway, we are working for our country. Alexander used to work for his country, for his nation, for his Russian village where he was born. Each year, once a year, we are coming over there. It's not no rest of this village at all, but we are making our a journey over there. We put flowers on this place, and we know perfectly well which great meaning for him was his thoughts, his feeling of motherland, of his small motherland, and of the people whom he loved so much.
Yeah, I imagine the importance of roots, cultural,
exactly. Yes,
national,
cultural. Yes,
roots.
Yes, exactly.
That's very good. Purina Anand, you're the president of the Forum of the BRICS. Can you explain what is this forum and what is it for?
BRICS International Forum is the think tank, and we initiated it in 2015 because BRICS agenda was not much known in India, and I was observing that in India and other countries people doesn't know about BRICS. So I was feeling that BRICS Summit's agenda should move to civil organizations and people-to-people organization. So this extension will help to governments to work more efficiently on BRICS issues.
And you're talking not only, of course, about Indian government, but you're talking about all the governments belonging to BRICS, and this time also to Russia. And so what is your main idea? What should it happen?
Thank you very much for your interesting question. It is very important that we should know that what is the agenda of BRICS summits, because if it will sustain only inside the government doors, it will not expand to people. And why we are with Olga Zinoviev, because it is important to know that Alexander Zinoviev was a person who reformed, and he was having new thinkings in Dadan time. He was not completely satisfied with the communism, and he always spoken against, and he wanted something new to reform Russianism in Russia. And for that he was expelled, and he struggled a lot in his life. And this is important that he studied on Western culture and Western politics during his expulsion time. So he wrote somewhere that during that time he was observing that Western countries are utilizing their natural resources completely, and he understands that very soon they will create problem due to this natural resources sickness to whole world. And today we are observing it. During Ukraine crisis, we saw that Europe is struggling for the energy. and on time they were not able to get ready for new solutions, and now they are depending on external countries like Russia, Saudi Arabia, UAE. So it is really touched that Alexander Zinoviev was far visionary, and we want that he believe in trusteeship, cooperation and people to people dialogue, and this is the basic ideology of the BRICS. So that's why he is very concerned, and we are here to celebrate Zinoviev 100th birth anniversary, to carry forward his ideas, to communicate with the BRICS countries and BRICS legends.
That's beautiful, but this is my last question. How do you think you can influence the governments of the BRICS?
If people-to-people groups will be stronger, and people organization, civil organization and next generation people will understand BRICS well and will understand the value of BRICS assets, then we can influence the governments, because this is right time that in current situation Eastern world and Eastern countries and BRICS countries should encounter the Western politics and overcome from this current situation.
This is my really last question now.
You're welcome.
How is India feeling about this European situation and the war in Ukraine?
India always played important role in world politics because India is from the country of peace and cooperation. In current Russia-Ukraine crisis, India is playing neutral role. You know, India is having very good relation with Russia since last 75 years, and Russia always stand with India. And in Europe also we are having very good contact. Indian politics and Indian vision is working everywhere, and I think world need spiritual enhancement and spiritual empowerment which comes from India, from East, from Sun. For world peace and cooperation, I feel Indian ideology is good.
Well, let's hope for the best.
I would like to add that very soon we are organizing in India BRICS Legend exhibition, and in that we are promoting Alexander Zinoviev work extensively at the priority places, and I hope President of India, Draupadi Murmu, will inaugurate the exhibition.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm really glad. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.